President Donald Trump finds himself in the middle of a transgender tweet storm. What's in the way of building much-needed housing in San Diego? A better question might be, what isn't in the way? And a website that debunks fake news finds itself in some real trouble. I'm Amita Sharma, and the KPBS Roundtable starts now. Welcome to our discussion of the week's top stories. I'm Amita Sharma, and joining me at the KPBS Roundtable today are Chris Genuine, editor and CEO of Times of San Diego. Chris, welcome.
Great to be here, Amita.
Dan McSwain, business columnist for the San Diego Union-Tribune. Hello.
Hello, thanks for having me.
And David Wagner, science and tech reporter for KPBS News. Welcome.
Good to be here.
So it's been quite a week in Washington. Last night, the Republicans' last-ditch effort to repeal and replace Obamacare failed. But that wasn't the only big event that had people amazed and concerned. On Wednesday, President Trump dropped a bombshell, tweeting that transgender people were banned from serving in the military. The massive policy shift surprised the Pentagon and spawned a backlash among conservatives and liberals. Chris Genuine, the question of whether transgender people should serve openly in the military, we thought was settled a year ago when Barack Obama was president. And then candidate Trump said he basically didn't want any part of the issue. What changed?
First of all, what President Obama did was he said you can openly serve in the military if you're transgender. That was in the middle of 2016. This month, the military was on track to start accepting openly transgender recruits. The Defense Secretary, Jim Mattis, put it on hold, so that really wasn't an issue. What it appears that happened was that President Trump was facing backlash from his right-wing conservative base over his attacks earlier this week, a lot has happened this week, by Twitter on Attorney General Jeff Sessions. And banning transgender people from serving in the military was seen by many as a way to quickly rebuild some credibility with that right-wing base.
But do you think it was successful?
It spawned an enormous backlash from the halls of the Pentagon to many supporters throughout the country. A good example was the Defense Secretary, Jim Mattis. The New York Times had a story that he was given about a day's notice. He was on vacation and was, according to the Times, appalled by the decision. And the Defense Department, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said very quickly afterwards, we're not going to do anything with this until we get a detailed directive from the White House.
Right. So does that mean that a showdown over this issue is in store internally?
Oh, I think it is, and it's also going to happen externally through Congress. Here in San Diego, Scott Peters, who represents much of central San Diego, filed an amendment to the Defense Authorization Bill that would overturn this ban. You know, a tweet is a very difficult way to make policy. It's very short. There are big questions. If you're openly serving now as a transgender, do you get discharged right away? Is it an honorable discharge? Is it a dishonorable discharge? The military doesn't like that kind of uncertainty.
Right, and on the very day that President Trump announced this policy change via Twitter, the White House could not answer basic questions on how it will be implemented. And again, as you mentioned, Congressman Scott Peters moved very, very quickly to propose an amendment. And that amendment says the government may not use any funds in an appropriations bill to implement, enforce, or observe in any way any directive from the President of the United States that bars or restricts the ability of transgender persons to serve in the armed forces. So there is that. Do you think this amendment will go anywhere?
I think there's a good chance. 20 attorney generals so far have come out against this. You know, I think San Diego is a great indication of what might happen. We're a military town. We love the military like no one else. Almost everyone, with one notable exception, was appalled by this. We had statements from many political leaders. The one exception was, of course, Representative Duncan Hunter, who said that he thought it was right on, the decision, and that it would help restore a warrior culture. But his fellow former Marine, Nathan Fletcher, who's running for county supervisor, immediately attacked this. And you know, it's really a small problem in some ways. It's not a problem, but there are 7,000 openly transgender people in the U.S. military. That's out of 1.3 million actively serving. So that's a tiny fraction of a percent.
Yeah, and Donald Trump in his tweets, if you read them, he makes it sound like there's huge costs associated with these few thousand people.
And as it turns out, the military actually spends more on Viagra than it would spend on health care for transgender people. I understand that it ranges from 2.4 million to 8.4 million a year, which is 0.04% of a $6.2 billion budget on healthcare spending.
It's a tiny percentage. There were reports right away about how much is spent on Viagra, and it's much more. But to put those numbers in perspective, they came from a RAND study in 2016. A Tomahawk missile costs about $1.5 million. So we're talking about 1 to 4 Tomahawk missiles as the cost in a worst case situation to have 7,000 Americans or more continue to serve in the military and help defend this country.
And again, Congressman Scott Peters is really trying to prevent this from happening. We have a clip from him. Here's what he had to say.
I don't know anything more backward than telling men and women who want to serve in our all-volunteer army that they can't serve because of their gender identity in the military. It just doesn't make any sense. When we heard about President Trump's tweets this morning, which is a battle I've been fighting here for years, we decided to file an amendment to the spending bill, the omnibus or the minibus, that says you can't spend any money enforcing such a ban.
And Chris, let's contrast that with what Congressman Hunter said. He said the president's decision was the absolute right decision. National security should trump social experimentation always. It's about time that a decision is made to restore the warrior culture and allow the U.S. military to get back to business. That's not playing well. But what also isn't playing well is the announcement of a major policy shift on transgender people via Twitter. Is that okay?
Well, Twitter at 140 characters, even if you do it across, I think he did 3 tweets to get it across, that's not a lot of information. Military policies are very complex. They go on for pages, and you can't just say, we're going to do X. I mean, you couldn't, Franklin Delano Roosevelt in World War II couldn't do in a Twitter statement say, we're going to launch the invasion of Normandy. It's a much more complex thing when you're dealing with the military, people's lives, people's career. And, you know, there was no respect in this for the people who are transgender who have been serving in the military. There's a retired Navy SEAL who was quoted Tuesday as saying, let's meet face to face and you tell me I'm not worthy. What the president was doing was saying, you're unworthy if you're transgender, without any further discussion.
So, Dan, what are you hearing people say about all this?
Well, this kind of analysis and this kind of blowback highlights the context. The civil rights struggle of LGBT people in our nation is the great struggle of our time. And we shouldn't forget how recent all this is. I mean, it just really moved at lightning speed. Barack Obama was against gay marriage through 2 elections, for example. And as you pointed out at the open, this just kicked in 2016. So this is all very fresh. This is all very new. But for better or for worse, the military has been an instrument of social justice and social policy. Harry Truman integrated the Army in the 1950s with African Americans. So, you know, this is yet another misstep from President Trump.
So, David, I'm wondering, how do you turn the clock back? As Dan was saying, that the military has been an instrument of social change, and this was a huge step when it happened. It happened after a great deal of study, discussion, and debate. How do you turn the clock back?
I'm not sure you can, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. You're going to get a lot of pushback to that, and if you're not approaching this very carefully, very cautiously, very thoughtfully, you're going to get a lot of pushback. I also wonder what, you know, this episode focuses on transgender people in the military, but I wonder, you know, we do have an all-volunteer army, what other people out there from other kinds of groups thinking about enlisting might be thinking right now when you have a president that's so mercurial and just so rash, throwing off these kind of bombs. We have undocumented people serving in the military. If you're an undocumented person thinking about that right now, signing up, does this make you less likely to do that, knowing that you serve a president that's just making these decisions so rashly?
That's a really important point because, tomorrow morning there's a new Navy destroyer that is named for a man who was an undocumented immigrant who died at Fallujah protecting other Marines from a grenade. Those are the kind of people that the military wants, and to create a cloud over one group means there might be a cloud over another group. And who among us should not be patriotic enough to want to defend the country, whatever our background?
And it's a commander-in-chief who said he wants to rebuild the military. So he has to improve recruitment, he has to improve equipment. This moves in the other direction.
And we're going to close it there, but we will keep an eye on this over the next coming months, weeks, and months. We all know it's tough to buy or rent a house in San Diego, especially if you're middle or working class. How tough is it? Well, the median price for a home in the county hit $515,000 in March, the highest point in 10 years. The situation is so dire that local politicians seem to be working overtime to find ways around it. Here's Mayor Kevin Faulconer last month announcing a new program called Housing SD.
We want our kids to be able to start their own families here. We want our parents to watch their grandkids grow up. We want our seniors to retire here in San Diego with dignity. People who love San Diego and want to live in San Diego should not be priced out of San Diego.
Columnist Dan McSwain has been looking into how we got into this situation. First, Dan, I have to ask you, you say that our housing crisis is a family affair, which seems to agree with what the mayor is saying. What do you mean by that?
Well, I've been writing about the housing shortage off and on since 2002. And as I get older, I realize that my stepkids can't afford to live in my community. So it's really a family issue. We have, and San Diegans complain to me, they say, my gosh, I have to drive to visit my kids in Las Vegas or Phoenix because that's the only place they can afford to live, and maybe Temecula, Murrieta if I'm lucky. So that was just sort of a way to highlight this issue that's been around for a very long time and just keeps getting worse. And
you've said like 14,000 people leave the city each year, right?
Oh yeah. One of the many myths about San Diego's housing crisis is that, oh my gosh, it's San Diego. The weather's beautiful. It's perfect. Everybody wants to live here. The hordes are flooding across the border. Well, as a demographic fact, our domestic migration it's migration, not immigration. We have more people leaving every year for other states than we have arriving from other states.
So this affordable housing crisis, you say, is the combination or the result of the combination of all of our choices. What are some of those choices that have limited housing in this region?
Well, land use is controlled by local government. And what they do has been enormously popular. And it's just a point of fact. The people who vote in local elections tend to be property owners, and they tend to favor anti-growth policies. You can be all for growth in the abstract, but when a developer wants to put 200 condo units down the street from your single-family home, people aren't shy about telling their representative to please stop that. And we have a series of regulations that restrict that kind of development. And on top of that, we have a long laundry list of fees. Well, so between fees and restrictions, we've created a very politically popular government created shortage.
So let's talk about some of those fees. What are they?
Oh, everything from park fees to traffic mitigation, although a lot of that money doesn't actually go to roads or traffic mitigation. It goes to other things. There's affordable housing requirements, which require a home that's being built for the market to also subsidize a below market home somewhere else, and a lot of that money gets lost inside of local government. There's just fees all over the place. On average, a new condominium or home in San Diego, the city of San Diego, at the low end of our market, which unbelievably is the 300,000 to 450,000 range, that house has an average $64,000 in fees.
Okay, so I have two questions on that. One is, if you don't charge fees, then, I mean, what are cities going to do to generate revenue?
Well, the same way they generate revenue in other ways. We don't tax other industries specifically. We don't tax hot dog cart sales, or we have a sales tax, which is broad-based, and we have a state income tax, and we have property tax. Those are all fairly broadly based. Housing, unlike really any other economic activity, has, other than tobacco and alcohol, are specifically targeted with special taxes, and this tends to restrict housing and increase the market price.
Okay, so my second question, though, is if those fees were to diminish, maybe not go away entirely, though, is the presumption that developers will then lower the price of the cost of the condo or the home?
Not as long as there is zoning restriction also. I mean, what we have is a classic market failure. It's what economists call a market failure. Generally, when the price of something is rising rapidly, new suppliers rush in to compete. I mean, Apple had the smartphone market all by itself for a matter of months, and then we had Samsung, we had everybody else coming in with phones. In San Diego's housing market, the higher the price gets, the fewer suppliers we have. We have less construction every year. I think the number of building permits that were pulled in the first half of this year approaches a financial crisis era record low. So it isn't because we have too much demand, too many people coming. It isn't because builders don't want to make a lot of money, because they do all over the world. Our problem is because we have restricted growth and we've added fees. It's a double whammy.
Is there an escape valve outside of San Diego, elsewhere in the county, smaller cities at all?
Well, through the 1980s and 1990s, most of the growth in the county was happening in North County. Carlsbad, San Marcos in particular, Oceanside, Vista, Escondido to a lesser extent. That's where our growth story was, and for a while that kept the pressure down a little bit. Then, starting in about the mid-90s, we exported all of our low-cost housing all the way to Temecula, Murrieta. I spoke to a developer during the housing bubble who had people driving all the way to jobs in San Diego from the Arizona border.
Wow.
That's how far they went to look for cheap housing. So yeah, we've been able to push, and don't forget about Tijuana. We have tens of thousands of people living in Tijuana that come here to work. So that's bad for the environment. It increases congestion on our roads, and it does nothing to mitigate it does nothing to contain the problem of runaway growth in rents and home prices.
So Dan, it seems like the city is trying to do something about it. In his announcement of Housing SD, Mayor Faulkner listed several goals that his group is trying to tackle. Here he is.
To spur the construction of low-income and middle-class housing through incentives, to streamline the development standards and speed up the project review process, to identify more funding for affordable housing, and encourage growth in transit-friendly areas, which also supports the goals of our landmark climate action plan.
So Dan, what do you think? A good start or too timid?
It's a fantastic start. I just can't say enough about what the mayor and the city council are doing. However, I should point out that it is a timid, very first step. But these things are important when you're turning the ship of state. Just a couple of years ago, the city council was moving in the opposite direction, trying to establish what they call a linkage fee, so that commercial development would also be taxed to support affordable housing. But they do have a long way to go. For example, nobody has declared a affordable housing or a homeless housing crisis to this day in the region. And even these affordable housing units that the mayor wisely is making easier to build, they have to pay the fees too. So you have a publicly funded housing project that is being taxed $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 per unit back to the city. It's a Kafkaesque Rube Goldberg device, to mix my literary metaphors, that makes even low-cost subsidized housing catastrophically expensive.
And we have to close it there, Dan. Thank you. Before fake news was, well, fake news, there was Snopes. Snopes is a San Diego-based fact-checking website which exists to debunk urban legends and internet myths. It now gets some 18 million visitors a month and has become an important media player in the current political climate. But Snopes finds itself in some real trouble, in danger of disappearing. David, start by telling us what exactly Snopes does. What kinds of stories do they debunk?
So if you go to Snopes.com, what you'll find these days is a mix of fact-checking on political stories. That's a big part of what they do now. So stories like today, I saw one about, did Anthony Scaramucci post a sexually explicit tweet back in 2009, I think. Snopes looked into that and found that it was false. So they'll debunk a lot of this misinformation that you might see about politics on Twitter or Facebook. And it's a mix of, they also debunk like urban legends, just kind of rumors. So they're a really important fact-checking website. You can Google something that you heard that doesn't sound right to you, and 9 times out of 10 there'll be a Snopes link in the results.
So who is suing Snopes and why?
Snopes right now finds itself in basically an ownership battle. So there are two parties here that both claim ownership over Snopes. We have, on the one hand, David Mickelson. He co-founded the company back in the mid-90s. So Snopes has been around for a long time doing this work. He co-founded it back then with his then wife, Barbara Mickelson, and they set up a parent company for Snopes called Bardov Inc. This gets a little complicated, but stick with me. So they later got divorced, and Barbara Mickelson sold her half of that parent company to a San Diego-based digital media company called Proper Media. And Proper Media got involved in this to like improve Snopes advertising and things like that. So now they have 50%. Their directors claim to have 50% ownership over the parent company behind Snopes. What's alleged here by Proper Media is that David Mickelson has mismanaged Snopes and that he has actually conspired with one of their own directors to seize full control over the company, to have a greater than 50% ownership stake. So that's the meat of their allegations against him.
Okay, so this lawsuit is financially draining Snopes. A co-founder puts out or starts a crowdfunding campaign. What happened?
So yeah, this happened on Monday. He put out a call to raise $500,000, he said, to keep the site running for several months, because what he's saying is the allegations against him have it all backwards, that Proper Media are the ones trying to seize control of Snopes, and they're doing that by withholding all the advertising revenue that Snopes needs to keep running. So he put out this call on GoFundMe for $500,000 on Monday, and by Tuesday he had well exceeded it. Just there was this outpouring of support from people online who clearly value what Snopes does.
So what does that say about Snopes' popularity, and can that level of fundraising be sustained?
Well, David Mickelson said that this money will help him keep the site going for, as he put it, several months as they figure out this legal situation. I think what's really interesting about this whole episode, though, is the name of the crowdfunding campaign was Save Snopes. I suspect that a lot of the people who gave $10 or more to this campaign weren't doing it necessarily because they wanted to pick a dog in this ownership battle. I think they did it because, especially after the 2016 election, people just see so much misinformation, so much fake news out there on the internet, and they really want a site like Snopes fact-checking this stuff and telling them what's true and what's not.
So the website's lawyers, Procopio, a local law firm, says that they've gotten Proper Media to release $100,000. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so they've gotten the court to order Proper Media to give them $100,000. But of course, the fight is for all the advertising revenue. I mean, whoever does end up owning Snopes, they're going to be running the site as they have for the last 20 years or so, based on that advertising revenue. And that's really what's the big fight here.
If proper media got control, is there any indication the site would change?
It's so hard to say. I mean, David Mikkelsen is the guy who's been running it for decades. Proper Media is more interested in kind of advertising technology. They work with some other websites like Salon.com, Raw Story. So, they have some experience running websites out there, but they haven't. Their partnership over Snopes doesn't date back as far as David Mikkelsen's.
And we've got to leave it there. That wraps up another week of stories at the KPBS Roundtable. I'd like to thank our guests, Chris Genowine.
Great to be here.
David Wagner.
Thank you.
And Dan McSwain.
Thank you.
A reminder, all of the stories we discussed today are available on our website, kpbs.org, and this program is also available on the KPBS Roundtable podcast. I'm Amitha Sharma. Thanks for joining us.